The year was 1873. The village of Grunwald lay between thick forests and cold rivers in the south of Germany. People there lived simple lives. Farmers worked in fields. Children walked to school. Horses pulled wooden carts through muddy roads. News came late, and strangers came even later. But that winter, something strange happened. A girl was found near the edge of the forest. She was not from the village. Her clothes were smooth and strange, not made from any fabric the people had seen. They shimmered a little under the sunlight like silver water. She wore no shoes, yet her feet were not cold. Around her neck hung a small pendant that gave off a soft blue glow. The hunter who found her, old Mr. Klaus, brought her to the village square. People gathered around quickly. "She came out of the trees," Klaus said. "She didn't say a word, just stood there, looking at me." The girl looked no older than 10 or 11. Her eyes were calm but distant. Her skin was pale and her hair was dark and long. She didn't cry or seem afraid. She just looked around, slowly, like she was searching for something. The mayor came. So did the village doctor and the priest. They tried to ask her questions, but she didn't speak. She nodded once when the doctor asked if she was hurt, but said nothing else. The priest thought she might be lost or sick. The doctor said she looked too healthy for that. Her heartbeat was slow but strong. Her body had no cuts, no bruises, not even dirt on her hands or face. One man said she was a ghost. Another said she might be a rich girl from the city who got lost. But none of the nearby towns reported a missing child. No one knew her name. It was the school teacher, Paul Weber, who stepped forward. "I'll take care of her," Paul said. He was a young man, quiet and kind. He had lost his family to sickness a few years back and lived alone near the schoolhouse. The villagers trusted him. "If she remembers anything, she might tell me," Paul added. The mayor agreed. The girl was handed over to Paul, and the crowd slowly left. But they whispered among themselves. Something about the girl made them uneasy. Paul brought her home. He gave her a warm meal, soft clothes, and a bed to sleep in. She did not speak, but she listened. She ate slowly, carefully, and watched Paul with steady eyes. That night, he lit a lamp and sat beside her. "I don't know your name," he said gently. "Can you understand me?" The girl nodded once. "Do you remember anything?" No reply. He smiled softly. "That's all right. You can stay here until you're ready to talk." He looked at her pendant. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "Do you mind if I look at that?" She didn't move. Paul reached for the glowing pendant, but the moment he touched it, a small jolt of warmth shot through his fingers. Not painful, just surprising. He pulled back. The girl finally spoke. One word. "Emma." Paul blinked. "Is that your name?" he asked. She nodded. He smiled. "Emma Richter. That's a good name." From that day on, she stayed with Paul. She sat in the classroom while the other children studied. She never caused trouble. She watched, listened, and sometimes wrote in strange symbols when no one was looking. Paul noticed her mind was sharp. Too sharp. One day, he gave her a puzzle meant for older students. She solved it in seconds. Another day, she stared at the school's map of the world and pointed out places that didn't exist on any current chart. He began to ask her small questions during lessons, and she always had the right answer. "Emma, how do you know this?" She would just shrug. One afternoon, he caught her drawing in her notebook. It wasn't a picture of flowers or trees. It was a machine with wheels and lights, with parts that moved in ways he couldn't understand. "Did you see this? In a dream?" he asked. She shook her head. "Then where?" Emma looked up at him, eyes serious. "It hasn't been built yet." Paul laughed a little, thinking it was a joke. But she didn't laugh. She wasn't joking. That evening, Paul sat alone at his desk, staring at the drawing she left behind. He didn't understand the shape or the function, but one thing was clear. This wasn't a child's fantasy. The design was too clean, too exact. Weeks passed. Rumors spread across the village. Some said Emma had strange powers. Some believed she was an angel. Others feared she was something else entirely. Paul tried to keep her life normal. He protected her from questions. He told people she was just smart and lonely and trying to remember who she was, but deep down, even he wasn't sure. One night, while walking back from town, Paul found Emma standing in the field behind the schoolhouse. The sky above was full of stars. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. Emma pointed upward. "Home," she said softly. Paul looked at her, confused. "You mean the stars?" She nodded. He stood beside her and looked up too. "You miss it?" he asked. Emma didn't reply. She just kept staring, as if waiting for something or someone to come back. Emma had been living with Paul Weber for nearly 2 months. In that short time, she had become a mystery not only to him, but to the whole village. She still spoke little, but when she did, her words were clear and careful. She understood everything around her, yet always seemed like she was thinking about something far away. Paul noticed how Emma could read any book within a few hours. She remembered every word, even the hard ones. She learned numbers, languages, and even maps faster than any student he had ever seen. One morning, he gave her an old math book from the city. It had questions most students couldn't solve, even adults. He handed it to Emma, expecting her to try a few pages during the week. But the next day, the book was full of answers, all written in her clean, straight handwriting. Every page had been solved, and the answers were correct. Paul looked at her with amazement. "How did you do this so fast?" he asked. Emma just replied, "It was easy." Paul didn't know how to respond. He started giving her harder work, hoping to find her limits, but every time she finished it without trouble. She started writing ideas in her notebook, ideas about machines, electricity, and light. Some words Paul didn't even understand. He had to check books from the city library just to follow her thoughts. He began to wonder if he should show someone else. So, one day, he wrote a letter to a friend in the city. His name was Professor Heinrich Bloom, a respected scientist who had once taught at a university in Berlin. Paul asked him to visit the village and meet Emma. 2 weeks later, Professor Bloom arrived in Grunwald. He was an old man with white hair, a long coat, and sharp eyes. When he heard about Emma's strange knowledge, he didn't believe it at first. But after seeing her notebook, he changed his mind. "Who taught her this?" Bloom asked. "No one," Paul said. "She says she remembers it." The professor asked to speak with Emma. She agreed, and they sat together for hours. He gave her questions about science, the stars, and the human body. Emma answered quickly, sometimes even before he finished asking. Then he gave her puzzles that had no known answer. To his surprise, Emma didn't get stuck. She gave new answers, ideas no one had written before. Bloom stared at her in silence, unable to explain how a young girl in a small village could know so much. When the session ended, he turned to Paul and whispered, "This girl is not ordinary. She knows things no one her age should know, things that haven't been discovered yet." Bloom asked Emma if she would come to the city to study, but she shook her head. "I need to stay," she said. "Why?" he asked. "I'm waiting for something." The professor didn't understand what she meant, but he didn't push further. That night, he wrote a letter to other scientists and sent it through the train station. He said he had met a girl with knowledge beyond their time. Over the next few weeks, more people came. They were doctors, teachers, and researchers. Some believed the stories. Others thought it was a trick. They asked her to draw what she remembered. Emma sketched machines that used light for power, flying vehicles with smooth wings, and cities that floated in the sky. One man asked how she knew all this. "I've seen them," Emma replied. "Where?" he asked. She looked at the glowing pendant around her neck. "Before." The men argued among themselves. Some said she was a genius. Others said she must have read secret books. A few even thought she was lying. But one thing was clear. None of them could match her mind. The village began to change. People from outside came to watch Emma. Some brought cameras. Others wanted to ask questions. Paul tried to protect her from the noise, but the world was already watching. One day during class, a boy asked Emma where she came from. Emma looked at him and said, "Not from here." "From another country?" he asked. She shook her head. "From another time." The classroom fell silent. Paul quickly ended the lesson, but he couldn't forget her words. That night he asked her again, "Emma, what did you mean? Another time?" She looked at the stars outside the window. "I was sent here. Something went wrong. I'm trying to fix it." Paul was quiet for a moment. "Who sent you?" Emma didn't answer. She held the pendant and closed her eyes. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. She opened her eyes slowly. "It will be." Paul felt a cold chill run through him. He didn't understand everything, but he knew she wasn't lying. The next day, Emma stayed quiet. She stopped answering questions from the visitors. She drew less. She spent more time outside, staring at the sky or walking near the forest. Paul started having dreams. In one dream, he saw a machine in the sky, flying above the village. In another, Emma stood in the middle of a burning field, holding the glowing pendant as people ran in fear. He didn't tell anyone about the dreams, but he felt something was coming. One evening, a thunderstorm rolled in. The sky turned dark, and lightning flashed above the hills. Paul searched for Emma and found her standing in the rain. Her eyes were fixed on the clouds. "Emma, come inside!" he shouted. She didn't move. Lightning struck nearby, and her pendant glowed brighter than ever. Paul ran to her and pulled her back toward the house. "What are you doing?" he asked. The thunderstorm did not pass quickly. Instead, it grew stronger with each passing hour. The sky turned black, and the wind roared through the trees like a wild animal. People in the village stayed inside, locking their windows and lighting candles. The church bell rang 3 times, warning everyone to stay safe. Paul stood near the window of his small house, watching the sky with worry. Rain poured down in sheets, and the thunder shook the ground. But Emma stood calm near the door, her eyes never leaving the sky. Paul walked over to her. "You said it's starting. What did you mean?" Emma held the glowing pendant in her hand. The light inside it had changed. It now pulsed faster, and each flash matched the rhythm of the lightning outside. "There is something coming," she said. "Something that followed me here." Paul felt uneasy. He wanted to ask more, but before he could speak, a loud crack shook the earth. A bolt of lightning struck the forest in the distance, brighter than anything they had seen before. For a moment, the entire village lit up as if it were daytime. Then something strange happened. A deep, humming sound filled the air. It was not the sound of thunder or wind. It was steady, low, and mechanical. Paul had never heard anything like it. Emma turned to him. "We have to go now. It landed." "Landed?" Paul asked. "What landed?" "There's no time," she said. "We need to go to the forest." Paul hesitated. The storm was dangerous. Trees could fall. The roads were flooded. But Emma was already putting on her cloak. Her face was calm, but her eyes were serious. Paul grabbed his coat and lantern. He followed her into the storm. The rain soaked them quickly. Mud pulled at their boots as they moved through the narrow path into the woods. The trees swayed in the wind, and lightning lit the sky every few seconds. They walked for nearly 20 minutes before Emma stopped. "There," she pointed. Through the trees, Paul saw a strange glow. Not fire, Not lantern light. It was blue and silver, shining from behind the thick fog. As they got closer, Paul saw something that made him stop. In the middle of a small clearing, half buried in the mud, was a large metallic sphere. It was the size of a horse cart, smooth and round with no windows or doors. The surface shimmered like Emma's pendant. A faint hum came from inside it. Paul stepped forward, holding up the lantern. The light bounced off the sphere, and he saw strange markings carved into the metal. "What is this?" he whispered. Emma stepped beside him. "It's from the same place I came from. It followed me through the rift." She placed her hand on the surface. The hum grew louder. The markings on the sphere began to glow. A soft click came from inside, and part of the metal opened like a flower. Inside, Paul saw a single seat with glowing symbols around it. It looked like a machine, but not like anything he had ever seen. No wires, no gears, no wood. It was smooth, perfect, and quiet. Emma did not climb in. She just looked at it with sadness. "This was not meant to come here," she said. "It's broken. But something inside may help us." She reached into the open chamber and pulled out a small silver cube. It floated for a second before settling in her hands. The pendant on her neck pulsed in response. Paul watched, still confused. "You said something followed you. Do you mean this?" Emma shook her head. "No, this is just a machine, a messenger, a part of a larger system." She turned to him. "The real danger is still coming." Paul looked around the forest. Everything was quiet now, as if the storm had paused to listen. Even the rain had slowed. "What do we do with it?" he asked. "We hide it," Emma said. "No one else must find it. Not yet." Together they pushed branches and leaves over the sphere. Emma used the cube to turn off the light, and soon it looked like nothing more than a hill of mud and stone. They returned to the village just before sunrise. The storm had passed. The sky was clear again, but the ground was soaked and broken. Some trees had fallen and rooftops had been damaged. But no one was hurt. People asked Paul where he had gone during the storm. He said he was helping Emma find shelter. Most believed him. A few did not. Rumors continued to grow. Emma stayed quiet for the next few days. She studied the cube in secret, often sitting near the fireplace and watching the lights move across its surface. Paul noticed her pendant was now connected to it. She said nothing, but he could see her preparing for something. One morning, Emma spoke softly. "There are others looking for me." "Who?" Paul asked. "Not from this time," she said. "They know I'm here. They'll come soon." Paul felt fear in his chest. "Are they dangerous?" "Yes," Emma said. "They want to stop what I'm trying to fix." Paul looked at her, unsure of what to believe. But deep inside, he trusted her. He nodded. "Then we'll stop them." Emma looked at him for a long moment. "You're not like the others. That's why I stayed." Paul didn't reply. He just put more wood in the fire and sat beside her. Outside, the wind had stopped, and the village returned to its quiet rhythm. But deep in the forest, under mud and leaves, the machine still hummed with quiet power. The storm was only the beginning. The village of Grunwald had returned to its normal life. Farmers worked in their fields, children ran through the muddy streets, and the church bell rang every Sunday. But inside the schoolhouse, Paul and Emma knew that peace would not last. One foggy morning, a train from the city arrived early. 3 men stepped off quietly. They wore long black coats, dark hats, and carried leather cases. Their faces were sharp, eyes cold, and none of them smiled. They did not speak to the villagers. Instead, they asked only one question. "Where is the girl named Emma?" Paul heard about them within an hour. A baker's son said the men were not ordinary travelers. They spoke little and watched everyone. When Paul asked around, he learned the men claimed to be scientists sent by the government. but no one had seen any letter or paper to prove it. Paul's heart filled with worry. He rushed back to the schoolhouse and found Emma sitting near the window, the silver cube still glowing in her hands. "They're here, aren't they?" Emma said before Paul could speak. He nodded. "They say they're scientists, but I don't trust them." "They're not scientists," Emma said. "They belong to a group that tries to stop change. They know about me. They've been watching the timelines. Now they want to erase what I know." Paul didn't fully understand, but he believed her. "We'll leave before they find you." Emma shook her head. "They already know I'm here. We need to wait for night. I'll need the cube, and we must go to the hills." Paul gathered what they needed. He packed food, warm clothes, and his small lantern. Emma placed the cube inside a cloth bag and wore her pendant under her coat. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the hills, the men in black coats knocked on the schoolhouse door. Paul opened it slowly. "Good evening," one man said. His voice was smooth but cold. "We're here to see the girl." "She's not well," Paul said calmly. "You can come back tomorrow." The man smiled without warmth. "We believe she holds information not meant for this time. We must speak to her now." Paul stepped forward. "You have no right to take her. She's under my care." The second man pulled out a strange device, something Paul had never seen before. It looked like a box with a crystal on top. The crystal glowed faintly. "We don't need your permission," the man said. Suddenly, a blue flash lit the room. The men stepped back, shielding their eyes. Emma had appeared from behind the curtain, the cube now active in her hands. Lights danced across its surface, forming shapes in the air. The pendant around her neck glowed bright blue. "Stay back," she said. "This device can disrupt your signal. You know what that means?" The men paused. One of them lowered his hand slowly. "You don't belong here. You risk too much by staying," Emma replied, "and you risk too much by interfering." Paul grabbed her arm. "Now," he whispered. They ran through the back door, down the narrow path behind the school. Rain had started to fall again, but they didn't stop. Behind them, the men shouted and followed. Emma and Paul ran toward the forest, their boots splashing in the mud. The lanterns swung in Paul's hand, throwing wild shadows between the trees. "They won't stop," Emma said as they climbed the slope. "They want to erase all proof that I was ever here." Paul helped her over a fallen log. "Then we'll make sure you stay here." They reached the clearing where the metallic sphere had landed. It was still hidden under leaves and branches. Emma placed the cube on the ground. A light spread from it, and the hidden machine came to life. A soft hum filled the air. The trees around them shook as the wind returned. Lightning flashed in the distance. Emma touched the sphere. A door opened again, and she pulled out another object, a flat panel with moving lines across its surface. "They were right," she said. "This machine has more than one purpose." "What do you mean?" Paul asked. "It can open the path to other times, but it can also protect this one. We just need to activate the signal." She placed the panel on the ground and connected it to the cube. Blue lines spread across the soil like roots. The pendant around her neck began to pulse faster. Suddenly, footsteps approached. The men in black coats had found them. One of them raised his device. "Step away from the machine," he shouted. Paul moved in front of Emma. "You can't take her." The man aimed the device. A beam of red light shot forward. Paul felt heat on his face, but the light stopped before it hit him. A shield had formed around Emma and the machine. She stood tall, calm in the storm. "I told you to stay back." The machine roared with energy. A circle of light rose from the ground. The men stepped back, afraid. Emma pressed her hand to the panel. "I can't hold them off forever. We need to leave this place." Paul hesitated. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere safe," she said. "Somewhere they cannot follow." He nodded. I trust you. The light grew brighter. The men in black coats shouted, trying to reach them. But the energy around the machine was too strong. Emma held Paul's hand tightly. Close your eyes. The world around them shook. The forest, the rain, and the men all vanished in a flash of blue light. Then, everything was quiet. When the light faded, Paul opened his eyes slowly. His ears rang, and the air felt strange. It was quiet. No wind, no thunder, no voices. Only the sound of birds and leaves moving gently. They were standing in a different part of the forest. The trees were taller, older. A soft mist floated between the trunks. Emma still held his hand, and the silver cube now glowed with a steady, calm light. "Where are we?" Paul asked. Emma looked around. "Farther north. I used the machine's last energy to move us away from the men in black. We're safe for now." Paul sat on a nearby rock, catching his breath. "Will they find us again?" "They will try," Emma said, "but it will take time. The signal from the machine was strong. It confused their trackers." Paul looked at her. "Why are they so afraid of you? What do they really want?" Emma opened the bag and pulled out a folded piece of old paper. "It's not just me. They fear what I might do here, what I might change." She opened the paper. It was not paper, Paul realized. It felt like smooth stone, thin and flexible. As she placed the silver cube near it, the surface lit up. Lines spread across the sheet like rivers. Mountains appeared. Oceans glowed. Then small symbols began to shine in different places. Circles, triangles, and marks Paul had never seen before. "It's a map," Emma said. "But not just of the world. It shows where certain things are hidden. Things that were left long ago by people not from this earth." Paul stared at the glowing map. "You mean visitors?" Emma nodded. "A long time ago, others came here. They left behind tools, machines, and knowledge. Most of it is buried or forgotten. But this map shows where some of it remains." She pointed to one glowing mark near their region. "This one is close. It lies beneath an old stone circle, deep in the forest. I think it holds something that will help us return. Balance to time." Paul felt a deep chill in his chest. "Balance to time? What does that mean?" Emma sat beside him. "My world was broken. The future I came from is full of mistakes. People stopped listening to nature. They changed too much, too fast. Machines ruled everything. The planet began to fall apart. A group of us tried to stop it. We believed there were moments in history where the damage could be undone." She looked down at the glowing cube. "I was sent to find one of those moments. This time, this place. Something important happens here, but we're running out of time." Paul listened carefully. He didn't understand everything, but he could feel the truth in her words. "Then we find the circle," he said. "We find what was left behind." Emma smiled. They packed their things and followed the path shown on the map. It took them deeper into the hills, where the forest became thicker. No villagers lived here. The land was quiet, untouched. After several hours of walking, they reached a clearing. In the middle stood a ring of large stones. Each stone was tall and weathered, covered in moss. Some were leaning, some cracked. But the circle was complete. "This is it," Emma said. She walked to the center and placed the cube on the ground. The light pulsed once, then again. A soft sound came from beneath the soil, like gears turning far below. Then a beam of light rose from the center, straight into the sky. Paul stepped back in awe. The ground began to shift. The grass and dirt moved aside, revealing a circular stairway made of smooth stone. It led downward into the earth. Emma looked at Paul. "Are you ready?" He nodded. Let's see what's inside. They walked down the steps carefully. The walls were lined with strange symbols, glowing faintly as they passed. The air grew cooler. At the bottom, they entered a wide chamber. It was round, with high walls and a ceiling made of black stone. In the center stood a tall device, shaped like a pillar. Wires and crystal-like pieces floated around it. At the top was a small, round platform like a control station. Emma walked forward and placed her hand on the surface. The machine came to life. Lights danced. Shapes appeared in the air above it. "This is a memory core," she said. "It holds data from the ones who came before. I can use it to open a gate back to my timeline, but I'll need your help." "My help?" Paul asked. She turned to him. This place was meant to be activated by more than one person. The machine responds to trust. It needs a strong connection, someone who chooses to help, even without full understanding. Paul stepped forward. "Then I'm ready." Emma smiled. Again, and together they touched the center of the pillar. A wave of energy spread through the room. The walls changed. More images appeared: cities, stars, machines, and people. One image showed the Earth as seen from space. Another showed the same planet, cracked and dark. Paul felt a weight in his chest. "This is what happens if we fail," Emma whispered. Paul clenched his fists. "Then we won't fail." Suddenly the cube pulsed again. A warning sound echoed through the chamber. Emma's face became serious. "They found us." Paul looked toward the stairs. "How?" "They locked onto the signal when we used the gate," she said. "We need to finish this now." Emma placed a small disc into the pillar. It glowed bright and rose into the air. "We need to protect this core. If they destroy it, the map will be lost." Paul looked around. "Is there another way out?" Emma nodded. "A tunnel behind that wall, but we must leave the cube behind. It will keep the machine active." Paul took one last look at the glowing chamber. "Let's go." As they disappeared into the tunnel, behind them the light of the machine continued to glow, guarding the map and the knowledge it held. The hidden tunnel behind the stone circle led deep into the earth. The walls were smooth and cold, glowing slightly with lines of blue light. Paul had never seen stone like this. It looked natural, but at the same time, it felt built by hands. That knew more than any human hands ever could. Emma walked ahead, her pendant still glowing. She held a small piece of metal in her hand. It was thin and flat, like a coin, but it gave off a soft hum. "This tunnel was made long ago," Emma said quietly. "It connects to the mountain. The last piece of the bridge is there." Paul followed close behind. "What is the bridge, Emma?" "It's a machine, a powerful one. It can open the path between timelines. If I fix it, I can send a message to the future. I can stop the mistake before it spreads." Paul tried to understand. "So we're going to fix time itself?" Emma gave a small nod. "We're going to try." They walked for a long time. The tunnel rose slowly until they felt cool air again. A hidden door opened silently, and they stepped out into a wide cave beneath a mountain. It was beautiful and strange. Smooth pillars of crystal rose from the ground. Light poured in from a crack high above, shining on something large at the center of the cave. It was the machine. Paul stared at it with wide eyes. The machine was shaped like a ring standing upright, taller than a house. In the middle of the ring was a flat, glowing circle that looked like water but moved like wind. Cables and metal arms connected it to the floor. On one side, there was a control panel made of black glass. Emma stepped toward it slowly. "This is the bridge," she said. "The first one ever made." Paul moved beside her. "Can it still work?" "It will need energy," Emma replied. "The pendant and the cube gave us part of what we needed. But to activate it fully, it needs a human signal. It needs someone who belongs to this time. Paul looked at her with confusion. Me? She nodded. Your presence, your trust, your choice. That's what powers the second part of the bridge. Machines like this respond to decisions, real ones. Paul thought for a moment, then stepped forward. What do I need to do? Emma handed him the small metal coin. Place it into the panel, then touch the ring with your hand. Don't let go until the light becomes steady. He did as she said. The moment he placed the coin in the panel, the machine woke up. The ring lit up with a deep blue glow. The floor rumbled. Sparks moved across the cables. Paul reached out and touched the ring. A cold shock ran through his arm, but he did not pull back. The light became brighter, changing from blue to white. Emma stepped back and watched as the machine slowly opened. The center of the ring now showed a sky full of stars and a large planet far away. It was Earth, but it looked different. Darker. Quieter. Paul stepped back, breathing hard. What did I just do? You opened the gate, Emma said. Now, I can send the signal. She walked to the panel and placed a small crystal disc into the machine. The ring began to hum louder. Words and symbols floated in the air, moving fast. Suddenly, the sound changed. It became sharp, warning of something. Wrong. Emma turned quickly. They're here. Paul looked toward the tunnel. The same humming sound they had heard near the schoolhouse echoed through the cave. Then 3 shadows appeared. The men in black coats had found them. They stepped into the cave slowly. The first man spoke. You shouldn't have come this far, Emma. You shouldn't have followed, she replied. We came to stop disaster, the man said. You came to cause it. I came to fix what your people broke, Emma answered. The second man raised a device. Then we end it now. A beam of red light shot from the tool in his hand. Emma moved fast. She raised her pendant and it blocked the beam. A burst of energy pushed the men back. Paul ran to her side. We can't fight them forever. No, she said. But I don't need forever. I just need 1 minute. She ran to the panel and began entering commands. The machine behind her glowed brighter. Paul turned to face the men. He picked up a broken crystal rod from the ground, holding it like a weapon. You'll have to get through me first, he said. The third man stepped forward, but before he could strike, the bridge released a loud sound. A wave of light filled. The cave, Emma cried out. It's working. The men stepped back, blinded. The ground shook. The ring opened wider. The stars in the center moved faster. Emma turned to Paul. I can't go with you, she said. What do you mean? Paul asked, shocked. This bridge is one way now. It can only send the signal if I stay. But you must return. You have to protect the others. The memory core, the map, the truth. Paul looked at her, eyes full of fear. I don't want to leave you. Emma stepped forward and placed the pendant in his hand. You'll remember me, and one day others will come who need your help. The cave shook again. The light became too bright. Emma smiled. Thank you for trusting me. Before Paul could reply, a wave of light pushed him back. The ring pulled him in. The last thing he saw was Emma standing calmly, her hair blowing. In the wind from the machine, her eyes full of peace. Then everything went silent. Paul's eyes opened slowly. He was lying on soft grass under a bright blue sky. The air smelled fresh, and birds sang nearby. But this place was not Grunwald. It looked newer, cleaner. The trees were taller, the houses brighter. People walked, in strange clothes, and some had small machines in their hands. Paul sat up, confused. He touched his chest and found Emma's pendant resting there. It was warm. He stood and looked around. He was in a city, but not like any city he had ever seen. The buildings were smooth and tall. Cars without horses moved silently on the streets. People smiled as they passed by. It was peaceful. A woman approached him. Her clothes were soft and light. She smiled gently. "You look lost," she said. "Are you okay?" Paul nodded slowly. "I am Paul. I came from a long time ago." The woman's eyes widened slightly. "Then you must be the one they spoke about. The man who helped the girl named Emma." Paul was surprised. "How do you know her?" She smiled. "Emma's story is not forgotten here. She saved many lives by changing the past. You helped her, and now we are all free because of it." Paul looked at the pendant again. It glowed softly. "Where is Emma?" he asked. The woman's face grew serious. "She stayed in the past to send the message. Her sacrifice gave us a better future." Paul felt a sharp pain in his heart. But he understood. Emma had trusted him. She had believed in him. Suddenly, a small boy ran to them. He held a book in his hands and smiled. "Grandfather, look what I found," the boy said. Paul looked at the book. It was old, worn, but inside were drawings of machines and strange symbols. He recognized Emma's handwriting. The woman nodded. "Her knowledge lives on. You will teach others what you know. You will keep her promise." Paul smiled softly. For the first time in a long while, he felt hope. He looked to the sky. The stars shone brightly. Somewhere out there, Emma was watching, waiting for the world she helped save. Paul whispered, "Thank you, Emma." And with that, he stepped forward into the new world she made possible.